The best way that I can describe this bike is like Jekyll and Hyde. Back at the beginning of summer, I got to ride my buddy's brand new Canyon CFR at Snowshoe Bike Park and test this bike out, and I wanted to let you all know how it's going to ride for the average mountain bike rider. The best way that I can describe this bike is like Jekyll and Hyde. Because of the trail mode and non-trail mode, this bike has two completely different personalities. You're going to get a completely different performance out of the bike. It's literally two bikes in one. In this video, I'm going to mainly just be talking about how this bike performed versus going into detail about the individual components, because this bike does have a top tier parts spec, so obviously all of these components are going to perform phenomenally, and you're not going to really have to upgrade anything on this bike if you do happen to purchase it. Also, just for reference, I'm riding a medium in the Canyon CFR, and I definitely recommend using their size chart or their size recommendation on their website, because this bike is longer than a typical large that I normally would ride, and it does run big. So definitely this is a bike you may want to size down on versus sizing up. So obviously I was at a lift access bike park, so I didn't get to take this bike on any long climbs. However, what I did was on the green mellow runs, I ran this bike in the pedal mode just to see how it would perform as your average everyday run-of-the-mill trail bike. In the short travel mode, this bike is insanely lively, playful, poppy, and just super easy to get in the air. It's insanely fun and just all around a really enjoyable ride, and I definitely would love to take this out on a regular trail because it does carry its weight really well, and honestly it rides like a smaller, shorter travel bike in this mode. Honestly, if I was to purchase this bike, this is the setting that I would leave this bike in unless I was going to a lift access bike park or going to ride somewhere with some really technical terrain, because it is just so much fun riding this bike in this short travel setup. I didn't get to take it on any really long climbing trails, but what I did was there's a few paved roads and gravel hills that I did pedal it up just to see how it did feel going on an uphill, and it felt like it put you in a really comfortable climbing position, and it didn't have a lot of pedal bob. And honestly, it just didn't really give you any fuss for especially being as big of a bike as it is. I thought it carried its weight really well. I'd love to see how it performed on some longer, more tight technical climbs, just because this is a really long bike. I'd like to see how it does. Now, when you flip this bike into the open mode, this bike takes on a whole different personality. This bike becomes very planted and composed, even in the rockiest and rootiest terrain. It still feels really smooth, and it just eats up chunky terrain with ease. This bike is definitely a bike that inspires confidence even when you get a little over your head. This is a bike that wants to go as fast as possible through the roughest terrain, all while doing it quiet and completely composed and smooth, and it just honestly rides like a downhill bike, and it makes riding steep and rocky terrain easier. This definitely isn't a bike that I would pick if you were looking for the more free ride or jump oriented trails, because it does feel like it takes a little bit more effort to get it off the ground in this open setting. Like I said, it just feels really good on landings, but this bike just wants to stay on the ground, go as fast as it can through whatever rocky, rooty, chunky, all natural terrain this bike wants to plow through. It just wants to eat that up. So getting airborne's not really what this bike was made to do. Also, where this bike is a longer bike, it does feel a little bit more sluggish in some tight corners and trying to get it around than some of the other bikes that I've ridden. I typically prefer a bike with a shorter back end just for that reason, because I love being able to get around corners really fast. It does make up for that. Once you get it back in the straightaway, it's going to gain speed like crazy. I think this bike would be suited for an aspiring racer or somebody who's just literally looking to get two bikes in one, as opposed to having two totally different bikes. That way you have a trail bike for your everyday use, and then this longer travel setting when you do go visit like a bike park or somewhere with some more gnarly terrain. This is definitely one of my favorite bikes, and maybe my favorite bike I've ever ridden, and if I had the money right now, I would totally buy one with no hesitation. But if you want to see what my full day on this bike did look like and check out all the trails I took it on, check out this video here, or if you have any questions, hit me down in the comments below. Thanks for watching.